All right, beautiful humans, welcome back to another episode of Naked Sunday. I'm your host, Caleb Nelson, and I have the pleasure of welcoming Mr. Morry David to the podcast. Morry, we're already having a great time. I can't wait to just keep this ball rolling. Thank you for
I'm,
joining
I'm
the show.
finished talking, Caleb. We're
We're
done.
done? You're tapped out? Damn it. I mean, just as we got the steam
I
started,
already
man.
said what I had to say.
Once the mic
Hi,
goes up.
everybody. How are you?
Morry, I have no structure other than this. I start all my episodes off with why I appreciate my guests. And the reason why I do this is I believe this is a helpful, positive step, first step perhaps, in the direction of a whole thing called world peace. Because I think we need to start telling each other why we love each other before the wheels fall off the damn thing. But I've had, maybe 2 conversations with you at this point. I saw you on another call too. I liked your energy. I liked your vibe. But more importantly, what I value in this life is people who are deeply of service and go out of their way to just help people. I can't remember what, maybe 2 or 3 people you recommended me I go talk to, which I'm holding myself accountable right now. I do need to still follow up with that. Sometimes I get a little lost in my text threads because I got a laundry list of them, but that deep desire to be of service and help others and grow and build meaningful relationships, especially nowadays with the remote space and in business, when business can sometimes get a little cold, which I don't think it needs to be. I think great business is warm and loving and caring and aspirational and values driven. It really meant a lot to me to for our relationship to start up on that foot, and I'm excited to be able to share some of the cool things, whatever greatness you've got with you coming out today. So thank you for just being you, my friend.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure talking to someone who can challenge me. I hate when somebody says, I want to have an interview with you, and all of a sudden they're not saying anything. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? So I'm putting my life in your hands. So go ahead, hit me hard.
Dun dun dun. Here we are. There, you know what? That's a good point. I've seen a lot of interviews where people are just like, they freeze up. I'm like, well, you were just talking for hours. I'm like, I think to that effect, hosting. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this. Hosting anything, which I also think hosting is really coaching, is a really highly undervalued skill, because in my estimation, hosting is not about you. It's purely a give. And the entire job is to house a space, literally or figuratively, that allows the person you're welcoming into that space to feel comfortable, safe, protected enough to explore the thoughts that are in their head and let them share their stories. And for me, like, I think everybody's got an interesting story. You just have to be interested in them. You can't just be listening to just be like, I'm going to tell you about my shit to respond back to. It's like, what kind of relationship is that? And I hear so many. I listen to a lot of interviews. So I listen to a lot of people who hold space. I'm like, guys, you just are talking back and forth at each other. Where's this thing going? Like, there's no fluidity. There's no warmth. There's no handoff. And it's as simple, not easy. It's as simple as, hey, tell me a little about yourself. Let's go. And just being curious. I don't know. That's my first rant of the day. You'll know as I can rant.
I'll ask you more questions as we go along.
Oh man, you're turning an interview on me. Here we go. Oh, that might be a new one here. I don't know how many people have turned it on me. Let's do this. So people can have a little framework of who we're talking to here. Morry, please, you know yourself better than I. Who are you?
Well, my wife probably has a total different explanation, but that's okay. She's been with me for a while. So when somebody's new and they say, oh my God, I can't believe all these things you do, my wife is saying, that's all you're doing?
Our wives know us best, right? The truth.
But anyhow, I have multiple businesses, and I've realized in life that time is the most valuable asset that you have. It's not money, it's time. Because if you have time, you can control how much money you make. If you don't have any time, you're out. So what I look in my businesses is to how can I release some of my time to do other things? Now, some people, when they retire, they release all their time and then they get bored very quickly or whatever. But in my case, I found that I could release 80% of my time and still have my businesses operate. Well, that's a lot of time. And what I decided to do was to look at the purpose of why I was put on this earth. Was it to really help put my kids through college, have a car and a home and make my wife happy, which is noble, it's a great thing. But was that my sole purpose? Or is there another purpose? So I looked at it and I said, what type of legacy projects could I do with the time that I had? Now, I knew that there are certain things that maybe I was or wasn't capable of, but I wouldn't know unless I tried. And financially, I wasn't putting my finances at risk by trying. I wasn't, opening up a restaurant and investing $4 million in equipment. I was doing legacy projects which perhaps could be meaningful. So about 25 years ago, I started writing. The reason I was writing books is because my kids at the time, they were 13 and 10. They were waking up in the middle of the night with nightmares. And my wife and I were concerned, and we found that it had to do with what they were reading before they went to sleep. So I said to my son, hey, you can't read these types of books. You have to read something else. And I don't know if you have a 13-year-old child yet, but
No,
when
not
you
yet.
do, you will find out that they are much smarter than you are. So my son proceeded to tell me that there were no other books to read, other than horror books. So, and he asked me specifically, what did I read when I was younger? So he opened the door and I said, well, I read Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. And he gave me one of these looks saying, Dad, seriously, you want me to read Nancy Drew? So I said, well, no, but I want you to read books like that. And he said, there are no such books. So I took that as a personal challenge and I started writing books. And I wrote about 19 manuscripts. And my kids liked them. My wife said, gee, you should be published. It all looked like a great idea until I attempted to get published. And 19 years ago, or actually longer than that, publishers, we didn't have the internet the way it is today. So you had to mail things out. So I got a book on publishers, and there's like 900 publishers there. So I said, this is great. I'm going to mail all 900 publishers my manuscripts. And it was about $6,000 in postage, and I'm sending things back and forth, and everything's getting returned. Basically because it's considered unsolicited material, and it goes on a little slush pile that they have, and they never even look at it. They just say, sorry, we're not interested. They never even read anything.
Wow.
A couple publishers said, have your agents contact us. And I went, oh, geez, I should have gotten an agent. So I got a book on agents, and 250 agents I sent out manuscripts to. They returned everything saying, we're not taking on new clients, but once you're published, we'd be happy to represent you. So I must have had 1,500 rejections, and I'm a pretty strong guy, but 1,500 rejections after a while, you're just like, that's it, I'm done. And I put everything aside. And about 5 years ago, one of my friends read one of my manuscripts and he said, hey man, you should publish this. I told him the story and he goes, no, you should try again. So I picked 4 publishers on the internet, sent them a query letter, which is like a sales pitch type thing with a couple of chapters. Within 2 weeks, 2 of the 4 asked to see my entire manuscript. And 2 weeks later, they both offered me contracts.
Wow.
So I was like, whoa, what just happened here? And the first book, The Chase, which is what it was called, that I wrote years ago, that became a bestseller in 3 hours. And the second book, the sequel, that became a bestseller immediately. So all of a sudden, you take a passion that started 25 years ago, and here I relit the flame, and all of a sudden I'm a bestseller. But that wasn't good enough. I decided there has to be something more to this. And I was with a gentleman, you may know him. He's the head of our organization that we belong to. We were on a plane in going to Nashville, and I showed him this manuscript, and he said, well, what's this for? And I said, well, maybe, you know, I can take it to Amazon or Netflix. Maybe, you know, that seems to me where writing should go, because these streaming services will need content to make their movies. And he suggested, no, you might be wasting it. He said, this is like a Steven Spielberg film. And I was like, Steven Spielberg, I think that's a little bit beyond my realm. And I didn't know the people that he knew and the people that he led me to. This guy has a lot of connections, and he's a great guy. And as it turned out, we were heading in that direction, and then we took a turn. And now we're making as an independent film with a lot of very well-known, I can't mention their names yet, but well-known celebrities. And we're making it in Nashville. That's a hint of the celebrities in Nashville. And my purpose of that book was something greater than writing. And I know that sounds strange, you know, but I looked at it saying, well, if I could write and I could get people's attention, what else could I do? So this movie is a modern day version of E.T. And in my version, this entity, E.T., it's a pure energy being that winds up inside a golden retriever puppy. So I kind of made it a dog movie and all kinds of interesting things. And this dog is living with this family, trying to determine whether he could help the human race. And he was watching television, and quite honestly, he was very disappointed in what he was seeing, because he didn't realize that television was not exactly what we truly are. And he starts looking at family values, the family he lives with, and he realizes, wait a minute, TV isn't really what humans are about. And he does some remarkable things. And as you're watching the movie, you're so excited. The government's after this dog. It's all kinds of things are happening. But the purpose of the movie is to bring the icon Cosmo to life. And that's what we're doing. When you go to the movie theater and you watch this movie, at the end, the lights go on in the movie theater. You're told to enter a code on your phone. And when you do that, Cosmo jumps from the movie screen onto your phone. We're bringing him to life, and he goes home with you.
Wow.
And the reason I'm doing that is I'm looking at the world and I'm saying, what's happening here with global warming? We have politicians that can't decide whether it's real or not. We have scientists that can't decide whether it's real or not. Yet we're having hurricanes and tornadoes and everything coming across the United States in crazy rates. Things that haven't happened for 50 years are now happening. We have, you know, our temperature, overall temperature of the earth is changing. We have the polar ice caps are melting. Now, whether or not we are doing this, nobody really knows. But the fact is, it's really happening. All right. We're polluting the waters. We're doing all types of things because industry feels, well, I have to get rid of our offset of our chemicals that we're using. So we'll just kind of dump it into the water. The water's big, it won't matter. Well, the fact of the matter is that politicians and people, they don't really, they may acknowledge some of the problems, but it's so massive that they basically just put their heads in the sand and say, well, there's nothing much we can do. We can hold worldwide seminars. We can talk about it. But the fact of the matter is certain countries are still going to put stuff in the air. They're still going to pollute. It doesn't seem to matter. So my feeling is, well, how can we get people to understand? Well, between you and me, I've tried talking many times to adults, trying to get them to understand the concept. And sometimes you get somebody that says, oh yeah, no problem, I get it. And other people want to argue with you. But there is a group of people that won't argue back because they haven't made up their mind yet. And that is children. So what we want to do is Cosmo, the dog, wants to lay out the problems of the world down at the level that a child could understand. Try to show them that how fragile the world is. Now, we're not going to scare them, things of that nature, but we're going to show them. We're going to show them how we share our world with creatures that live in the ocean. We're going to show them that that made me, they're brought up in the United States, but perhaps it's different from a child brought up in South Africa. So we want to expose them to this and get them to meet other children around the world. Get them to work on things through Zoom, like I'm talking to you. Get them to work on projects, science projects, even at 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. Get them to understand that if they want a better world, they have to figure it out. We'll help them, but they're the ones that will become the future leaders. They're the ones that will become the politicians. And if we can plant the seeds of how we can help the earth and help one another and children, what's going to happen in 35 years when they become leaders of industry? Will they pollute? I don't think so. Will they fight amongst one another? I don't think so. So I decided to take my talents of writing, move it into the movie industry, and then bring it into the hands of the people. That's a pretty big legacy project, but to
Love
me,
that.
I have to go for it.
Well, what I think is really cool about that's a very creative idea. It's a quite a literal breaking of the fourth wall from a art standpoint of like the character leaves the screen in the sense of maybe they're playing, but the morals are being able to be imbued of, well, how do we all get along? And maybe that's a good idea. Maybe not. You talked about that. Like, I barely watch any regular TV. There's a couple things that I like to watch, but it's I don't turn on regular news or things like that for the simple fact of it's just a bunch of people yelling at each other, and
And it's
it's not,
depressing.
and it's depressing. And you're like, cool. Well, what's the point? As you had said, people throw their hands up. Well, why would you do that? Now this is a nice, and what I think is really cool about what you're saying. Some people I think you get caught off of like, oh, I'm gonna go sell like a kid's book or something like that. It's like to be able to take concept that in many ways are very deeply complex, and I think people think it's dumbing down. If you change the word to distill, you're really taking the purest form of those concepts and saying, here's this idea. How can we use this in a way that's meaningful? And dog's playful, it's warm, it's welcoming, and it
It's a puppy.
makes, yeah, and it makes some of these, and I'll openly say sometimes I struggle. I get a little heavy handed when my wife's like, oh, here you go, you're lecturing, and you're like, well, these are heavy concepts that like I think are the meaning of life and you should be talking about. Like, that's me getting on my own stuff. But the playfulness, the softness, if you can, it's almost like Trojan horsing it and saying, I'm going to take this beauty, I'm going to hide it in something that this beauty that's a lot of power, which I think power is actually very scary for many, and you're hiding it in a vessel that is very interactive, very amicable, very playful, very, oh, I can wrap my head around this. That's really cool. Plus, you're using, as opposed to saying, hey, technology is bad, you're using technology as a tool that's saying, well, oh, let's actually just flip the thing on its head. Instead of pouring garbage into some kid's head, why don't we just put something that's meaningful and they are going to enjoy and they're going to do something with it? Like, that's a really cool creative endeavor that
Well,
but
and Cosmo himself could also show children about nutrition. And I'll give you an example. A child's eating candy, wants another candy bar. Mother says, I don't want you eating any more candy. Now put yourself in the mind of that child. When your mother says, I don't want you eating any more candy, you think, why is my mother being mean to me? She knows I like candy. Why is she telling me I can't have candy? Now, she has a reason, but I don't understand that reason. It makes no sense to me. All right. Well, here's the thing. The mother's not going to take the time and say, well, let me show you what carbohydrates do to the human body. Let's go inside your body. Let's follow this. No, she's busy. She's making dinner. She just doesn't want the kid to eat candy. Whereas Cosmo will take the child inside the body and say, let me show you something. Your mother's not punishing you. You know, candy has affects the human body. Now, when you're little, you might get a bellyache if you eat too much. So you'll learn from that. But in reality, when you constantly make these decisions of eating high fructose, corn, pure sugar, and all this, you're making those decisions when you're small. but those are habits. Those habits will follow you the rest of your life. And what will happen is when you get older, the candy that maybe you could tolerate, that extra piece when you were younger, body can't tolerate it. Okay. You'll have problems with your pancreas. Perhaps you'll become a diabetic. Perhaps you'll become obese. Now you have all types of problems simply because you didn't understand what that candy could really do to you. So Cosmo will show them and then show them the alternatives, that there are other things that you could like that are just as good as candy. And we'll show them putting an apple in peanut butter. We'll show them frozen grapes. We'll show them different things where the child will go, oh, okay. Well, next time I want a candy bar, I'm going to ask my mom for an apple and peanut butter. So now, would the mother have time? Well, some mothers will, but most of the time, parents are very busy today. So Cosmo could help in that respect. Now, keep in mind, if we make children make better choices, and now when they're adults, they are not obese, they do not have diabetes, we actually could change the health of people in the world simply by having children understand the concepts of what goes in their mouth, understanding the concepts of exercise, understanding the concepts of meditation. We've all seen kids that they're crazy. We have to teach them how to calm down. Now, what happens is, look at what these children are used to seeing. They're watching television and they're constantly seeing violence, even in cartoons. I remember when I grew up, Roadrunner and slapping him with a hammer and, and all the Elmer Fudd was shoot, but they were always killing something, thinking it was funny. But the fact of the matter is, a child's brain at age 6, 7, and 8 is being formed. You can't constantly show them violence, sexual situations, cursing, and just say, disregard that. That's like telling the jury, disregard what we just said. You can't disregard something you just saw. It's still in your brain. So you can't tell a child it's bad to be violent, yet they're watching films on TV where the good guys are beating up the bad guys and killing them. Now, if you wonder why certain children may pick up a weapon that they find in the house, which is a whole other issue, okay, but they take it to school and they use it, you see, that child is used to things being reset. Their video games, when they do their killing, when they do whatever they want to do, they can shut off the game. And when they turn it back on, everything's back to normal again. That's what they're used to. So when they use that weapon in a school, they don't understand that the next day, those children that got hurt by that weapon, there is no reset. They're gone. They don't understand that concept, because our concept to children is, if things aren't going your well, just turn it off and turn it back on and start over again. So we have to basically show children other things. Now, we can't stop the violence. We can't stop, video games. We can try. We can make parents more aware, but we can start showing children other things. We're going to try to balance it out by showing family value things, which unfortunately Hollywood doesn't think there's any money in family value movies. Well, we maybe can change their mind. I'm hoping we can anyway. But, if we want to stop kids from becoming violent and doing things in school, and we say, Tommy, why did you do that? You can't show them this stuff on TV. You can't show them these video games. You have to show them something else. So I'm sorry if I'm preaching to you.
No, I like it, because where I'm going, it sets it up where what I think you're speaking to really well is they're sending a mixed message. And one of the first thoughts that came to my mind as you were describing that was, when you're a kid, your parents are your God figure. It is what it is. Like, they're the ultimate authority.
Yeah.
And if they say no, they're the bad guy. And I would go so far as to say we have a very unhealthy relationship with authority. I happen to be one of those people who has struggled with it. And I know how I feel. The second you tell me no, that's exactly what I want to do. It's exactly what I want to do. And thankfully, I'm old enough. I've worked through plenty of things where I go, oh, well, what's that really coming from? Am I just trying to not be wrong or something? It's my own insecurities. But a kid doesn't know that. They
Mm,
haven't necessarily gone through all that stuff. And that's a primal, like, this is what it is. And they also don't understand, as you had mentioned, they don't know because of whether the mother didn't have the time, or they were busy, or they didn't have the tools to say, here, let me really explain what's going on here, or open a dialogue around it, because it's a lot of work.
yeah.
And especially when they're filled with their 9 to 5 and they're rushing from this, using this tool to say, oh, this is another person, an idea, this is another voice that houses the values I want to talk about. It's going to reinforce the message. So when I come back to it, oh, it's two different people. It's kind of like saying, oh, mom and dad are on the same page. Oh, it lands. It lands differently when there's two different voices in the house. You see disarray. Happens all the time. And I thought that was it's really tactful to use that. And here's a third party. Even before we got on this, what was I saying before? Like, I got something going on with my wife. What do I typically do? Like, hey, to my buddy, mind like saying this to her? Because I know you're going to say it once, exactly the same tone, exactly the same way. And she'll go, oh, that's a great idea. But if I said it, oh, don't control me. Don't tell me I'm the da 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 da. The classic thing. Like, our significant other might be right, but we don't want them to be right. It's that. But the random person on the street will say the one thing, like, what a great idea. What a great idea. Well, let's just leverage that understanding and make it easier on her. And that's not to say you don't have to do the work as the mother, or the parent, the father, the whomever, the friend. You still need to do the work to still house a beautiful conversation and build that relationship. But as you're saying, here's one more voice in the room to go, oh, same page, got it. I mean, one of the visualizations I said, as you talked about, is like the exponential
Mm,
impact of this. What do you say, 20, 30 years from now, when the kids are an
unbelievable.
adult? Well, I just think about health. We were just talking about what I guess I'm coining is this generational concept of generational health. Is, well, think about all those kids who are better communicators, so they get in less trouble, which is all trouble of like detracting them from going towards their purpose, or making decisions about their health where they lower their energy, lower their cognitive function, or having to do a mountain of work just to get to good, not to optimal, just to get to good. That's a lot of wasted energy, as we're talking about polluting the world, but also polluting ourselves. Oh, they're starting off at 30, a mile to 10 miles down the road, figuratively. Well, what are they going to do with that extra time of higher level cognitive thinking, higher level relational building? Yeah, I love the trickle down effect of that, as you're talking about. Well, what a cool legacy project. You just give back to the next generation, which also gives back to their, however many generations down the line. Really cool. Really, that was the first thing that came to my head.
I mean, and keep in mind, it's their dog. It's their virtual dog
Yep.
that's with them all the time. They can ask, like we ask Alexa, hey, Alexa, who was the president in 1942? They can ask Cosmo anything. We have a lot of people behind the program of Cosmo, psychiatrists, psychologists, crisis management people,
Wow.
nutritionists, people that know Far Eastern techniques for meditation. Because, what we want to do is Cosmo basically is their mentor. He's their cute little puppy that can talk to them. Now,
Mm.
it's funny. I looked at many things when I was developing Cosmo, and I respect these people tremendously. Walt Disney, to give you an example. Here's a guy who had some drawings and he brought drawings to life, but he wanted to go further. He wanted to make feature films, and then afterwards he wanted to do theme parks. He wanted to do things that bring families together. Now he has been passed away 50 years ago, but his legacy is still moving. And I looked at that and I said, how wonderful of the impact that this man has made on many people that have children. It could be the biggest family vacation ever. We're going to go to Disney World or Disneyland, and now it's around the world. Of course, the only problem is as it grew, so did the expense to go to Disney World. Now is a major economical impact on a parent. $10,000 to take your kids to Disney World. unless you happen to live there. And then it may be 2000 or whatever. But I looked at this, Lee, and I said, it's remarkable. He built this entertainment icon, Mickey Mouse. Everybody knows Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, most of the icons, but they weren't educational. They were for entertainment purposes.
Mm.
Yet some of his theme parks became educational, like Epcot and different things where he wanted to educate. But I looked at that and said, wouldn't it be cool if we take today's technology and we take the icon like a Mickey Mouse, but now make it interactive and make it educational? So combine the elements of being entertained with education. And of course, we're going to be doing games, video games, and whatever. But one of the interesting things that we want to do is we want to show children how to be responsible. So we're developing like a cryptocurrency. It's not crypto in the sense of what's happening now with cryptocurrency. It's more like a digital coin. And I don't know if you remember when you were a child or this even happened to you, but we used to go to these penny arcades and play these machines, and all these strips of coupons would come out of the machine. And we would go and we'd go to a guy sitting behind a counter, and he had all these items, cheap little things, novelties. And we used to hand him our pieces of coupons, and he would say, oh, well, you have 50 coupons, you can get this. And we were so happy. So that we were able to redeem our coupons. Well, we want to do the same thing with Cosmo. We want to have kids redeeming their digital currency, okay, for things on our website for free. But in order to get that digital currency, they have to do something. They have to take a class. They have to do a charitable act. Now we're going to work with charities. And they have to do something special that will make them feel good, but at the same time, they get this little reward that they can go and get their little toy or whatever they wanted to get. Because a lot of these older concepts we can bring now in the digital world and get kids involved. And they could say, well, this is a lot more fun than me killing people on a video game. Look what I'm doing. I'm working with other kids. We made this little project, and I got 2 Cosmo coins. Now I can go to the website. So we're trying to establish things with children that they don't normally see at 6 and 7 years old. We want to build responsibility into these children, that if you do good things happen to you. So, our parents, I'm hoping, will love this. We're bringing parents in, asking their opinion. We don't want to do things, where a parent says, what the heck's he doing with my child? No, parents are a part of this. Teachers are part of it. But we feel that if we really want to get this going, we have to reestablish things that we used to do when we were kids that for some reason we don't do anymore. I don't know why, but there used to be amusement parks where my parents would take us on a Sunday, or miniature golf courses. A lot of those places don't exist anymore. And we have to, there you go, we have to reestablish this kind of stuff where people could have fun with their kids. Grandparents could enjoy taking their kids to a movie and playing games with their kids. And if you look at the divorce rate of our country, it's a shame, but you have on both sides, you have a mother or a father that has the child for that weekend. Need something to do. We have to show them, here, come with us. We're going to do these family things. So, I'm hoping that if even a part of what I want to do works, it could make a major change 30 years from now.
Well, it's just smart to gamify responsible behavior.
Yeah.
And people want to make it like very rigid. Kids don't respond to that. It doesn't indoctrinate them into, for an adult, you want, another way to say is like make responsibility sexy. I talk about that all the time. Like, as opposed to rewarding, hey, always jump out of a plane or get hammered and be like, everybody's throwing money at those things, those kind of like just thrill rides, we'll call it that, which is just very surface level. And there's a time and place for everything, don't get me wrong, but knowing how to wield those energies is also different. And right now there's not a foundation under that to say, like, how did you come to those decisions, and why do you continue to choose that? Now what it sounds like you're saying is, like, let's build your base so you have learned what does it mean to be rewarded by doing these enriching behaviors, that is not just going to lead to, oh, you have a better connection with your family, but also, oh, this probably is going to lead to practical results too. Whether maybe in the beginning it's like, oh, cool, you got bought a toy or whatever the thing is, like, oh, fun. Like, they don't have a concept maybe of like, I had to buy food today. But what if you could? What if you could teach them financial literacy? What if you could do those things through something as innocuous as, well, here's this dog, and dog is a great metaphor for loyalty. That's this loyal companion. I'm here with you, and dare I say, even call it a spiritual endeavor, because that's the thing. Like, maybe this is your representation of yourself going through life. We're going to work on becoming a better version of ourselves. Incredibly creative. I think it's hell. I want to get involved.
And
I wouldn't mind being the voice.
I'm going to get you involved. But you know it's funny. My wife looks at me and she goes, so at your age, you're going to pull this off. And I said, no, you have to understand that I'm going to start the ball rolling. But at my age, what I have to do is have younger people behind me, where I can show them the direction that I'm taking and then hand the baton to them. Just like Disney World and Disneyland is still running and Walt Disney is no longer alive, I have to be able to start this whole process, get it running over the next couple of years, and then turn to people younger than myself, people like you, and say, can you help take over this project? So to me, that I have to keep it going, and I have to look at not just the children, but the people behind me and say, am I inspiring them so they can know where I'm going with this, so they can now move it forward?
Well, I have a question upon that, which I think you just struck a chord with me, which this is deep within my curiosity, because I'm mid 30s right now. I'm going to be, by the time this airs, I'll be probably 36, which would be a very interesting way of life lining up, as the universe or God or whatever wants to plan it. But when I know for the past few years of my life, as my wife and I are also talking about starting our family right now, one of the big things I get curious about is a conversation around legacy. And what you just brought up there, I think a lot of people, myself included, struggle with this thing I'm starting. I'm not going to see the end of it. What I'm curious about is that even something that you grappled with? Obviously you brought it up, but
Oh yeah, I know. I won't live 35 more. I'm sorry, but I don't want to give away my age, but very few people will live 35 more years than my age at this present time. And besides, if I do live that long, my brain will be shot anyway. so
yeah.
so I look at it, and remember I said time is our most precious commodity. I look, how much time do I have to get this rolling? And as part of that time would be to make sure that it continues when I say, listen, I've done what I could. It's time for me to move on and let the younger generation put their spin on it. Because what makes me think that I'm perfect? I'm not. Perhaps the people behind me will have even better ideas. And I'm sure they will have better ideas. Certainly from a technological end, I'm sure they will have better ideas. So why not hand the baton to them? Why not mentor them while I'm going through this process? So I have a group of people that I say, okay, you're my team. I'm stepping away now. It's your turn. Mm-hmm. So I have to look at both ends, both the children and the people I'm mentoring.
So, and correct me if I'm not hearing this correctly, but it sounds like you reframed perhaps the definition of success less by a completed project, more by, this is the role I'm serving right now, and I go by success, like I need to do that every day. As you talk about mentoring, is it that kind of the way you shifted your mind with that?
Yes, it's well, think, it's funny when you talk about the pyramids, okay, but none of the designers of the pyramids ever saw the pyramids.
No.
Okay. And if you look at Einstein, if you know, what he talked about may be relevant today, but at the time, he could only work with the resources that he had. The same with Edison, the same with Nikolai Tesla. Nikolai Tesla is a great example. People didn't even understand where he was going with his ideas. Yet our world is shaped upon his ideas. You know, when you walk into a factory and it's lit by fluorescent lights, he developed that. It wasn't Edison. When you plug something into an electrical outlet, we take it for granted that, hey, there's power here. But that power was designed 100 years ago, when the concept of AC power was like, what are you, crazy? You can't do that. All right. The remote controls that we use to turn on TVs, whatever, Nikolai Tesla. He developed remote controls before there were products that needed remote controls. He looked at how radio waves work. And the interesting thing is, some of the things that he created, other people took credit for. Marconi took credit for inventing the radio. In 1950, the patents were reversed. It was Nikolai Tesla that invented the radio.
Wow.
Okay. So some of these people, depending upon how they presented their projects, did they have people helping them? Depending upon how their legacy worked, we may see their end result now, or may have just died with them. So I'm looking at it saying, how can I keep this rolling? Certainly, I won't see the end 35 years from now. But if I start this snowball rolling down a snowy mountain, nothing will stop it. I just need people behind me to make sure it's guided down the mountain properly. And I have to respect the fact that I'm not the only candle in the candelabra, you know, I'm just one person.
Well, what I appreciate below that is this undertone of humility, because it's saying it's not about me, which I think lends itself to the beauty of what a true legacy project is. It's not about me, it's the people
Project. It's not me, it's the project.
and the people. The project is about the people it serves.
Yes.
And I mean, not knowing how many or who exactly has got to be what a bizarre concept, because I can't imagine Tesla could even wrap his head around it. Well, this is what this exact person on this day is going to flip this switch on, and like my thing is doing. Like the scope is too massive, but the driver is beautiful. What this took me back to, I appreciate that answer, because especially for anybody in leadership positions, and I think this is something that it took me a long time. Just you sharing this helped me kind of just reaffirm, okay, this is how these types of things get going. For a long time, I was chasing more credit, not realizing it's like sometimes there's a difference between, sometimes you got to be the face of starting something versus like if it's about the credit, you actually stop your ability to get other great minds involved. And I think that comes from a scarcity of, I won't be loved, or my work wasn't meaningful. Well, the point is the project was not about you in the first place. The fact that it lived on is what makes it meaningful. And the heart of it is the point. And I think I really admired and appreciated the humility below that. And yeah, for the record, you say you're a little, obviously you're a little older than me, but that's okay. Like I think wisdom is not revered enough in culture today. It's this, I want to stay young forever, but we throw the baby out with the bathwater of saying, well, how about you talk to somebody who's lived a life and done some real shit with their life? Maybe they might have a clue on like what really matters most. So these types of things, when we start talking about legacy, it's a big concept. As much as, oh, legacy, this is my legacy project. Like, no, that's a big deal. There's a lot of weight behind it, which really leads me towards one of my bigger questions here is, you had mentioned like, I need to make more time. I need to make time for this legacy. You didn't even know exactly what is like. I liked this writing thing. And those, you said the first two books, didn't even know it was going to go that direction. It was like, okay, whatever. And here you are, like, there's this other. what do you think is stopping most people from actually making the time to go after their legacy project?
Well, there's a couple of things. In fact, I just finished writing a book called Why Some
Another
People,
one.
yeah, but this is not fiction. This is Why Some People Can Fly. And it's being sent to the publisher now. And I studied exactly that question. Why certain people can fly, not, jumping in the air and staying there, but literally take off, leave. Some people are grounded. They stay on the ground, they never leave. Why were certain people just, they never leave, and other people feel the need to leave the ground? And, I tell many people, imagine if you live your life in a maze. Now, inside the maze, you don't know it's a maze. It's just your life. You're walking from place to place, and you're enjoying different things, but you don't know it's a maze. It's your life. The way that you find out it's a maze is somebody gives you a ladder and you climb up and you look down and you realize, hey, I'm in a maze. There's a door over there I never knew existed because I never walked down that hallway. In fact, this wall over here, all I have to do is climb over it and look at this world outside my maze. But they never get the ladder. So they live their life in a box, per se. And why? Because society wants us to live in a box. From the time that we're younger, and from the time you're a baby, you're born from a womb, it's a box, per se. And then you're swaddled, so you can't move your arms. It's another form of a box. Then you're put in a crib, so you can only go so far. And then, of course, as you get older, your box expands. You even wind up going to see other boxes by going to school. Now you're meeting new people, other boxes. But in all cases, people are concerned about your safety and your security, and they're telling you what to do. They're telling you what to do. That's how your concepts of, what you're supposed to do. So now you go to high school, you go to college, it's just different boxes. Now you graduate college, if that's how you were headed, and you get a job, it's another box. And depending upon your happiness and your drive, you may jump and you may say, well, gee, I graduated college. I wanted to be a teacher. But now that I was a teacher, I really want to be an insurance man, or I really want to do this. So you may jump around, but you're just jumping from box to box. Now let's take a look at people that fly. They don't just jump from box to box, they fly. Let's look at Nikola Tesla. Let's look at Thomas Edison, Benjamin Franklin, Steve Jobs. Let's look at Elon Musk. Regardless of how you feel politically about these people, they have a need. They look at something, they look at the world differently. Their perspective is different. When they go outside and they look at the sky, you may see some stars. Elon Musk is figuring out how he's going to get to Mars. Okay. When Nikola Tesla looked up at the sky, he's thinking about how he's going to make electrons flow from tower to tower. All right. So and when Edison looked at the sky, he's saying, how can I brighten the world of the people so at night they can have more light? So everybody looks at the sky differently. Well, many of these people, their perspective is different. And what made them unique is their ability to hyper focus. When they decide that they want to go after something, they block out all the negative energy, all the people that tell them you can't do it. They don't listen to those people at all. They are so hyper focused and they believe that their project will work that they can't believe anything else. When Edison was asked about his failures, the 1,000 failures he had in making a light bulb, he told the reporter, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't fail at all. There were 1,000 processes needed for me to find out which filament would work properly. You're calling it a failure. I'm calling it a learning experience. So depending upon how you look at things, they may be failures or not. Well, this is the interesting thing that I found, and I went back in history, Mozart, I found 40 people. And what I found is all these people would be considered to be on the spectrum of autism. And why? Because they had the unique ability to envision things in their own perspective, okay, and hyper focus. And many times when they hyper focus, they appear to be antisocial. They appeared to be strange to society. Why? Because, you know, you couldn't talk to Edison. You certainly couldn't talk to Nikola Tesla. And if people looked at Einstein at the time, they said, what is this crazy guy doing? Okay, because they didn't understand him. So what my book was about is to learn the processes of how to envision things differently, like I did, trying to take my book and say, how could my icon Cosmo changed the world? I envisioned a different world with this dog leading the charge. Okay, and now how to hyper focus and find the proper people to get it done. So to answer your question, if a person wants to jump to another level, they have to do three things. Number one, they have to want to in their heart. They have to believe in themselves. Believe in themselves so much that they, number two, won't listen to the negative people. And number three, they have to find a way, whether it be through meeting mentors, other people that perhaps walk before them, climb the ladder before them. They have to align themselves with someone who has done the task and helps bring them along. And if they do those three things, anything's possible.
I love that assessment. I love that breakdown. 3 steps like that. And the undercurrent there is like, it sounds like people are just afraid to be themselves.
Many people are just afraid. They're afraid because they've been taught all along not to do it. You know, if you are a successful business person, or what is deemed successful, and you want to try something new, what's the first thing the board of directors say? Don't do that. We have a great thing running. Why would you want to make any changes? All right. If you were somebody that worked, you know, and you were a washing machine mechanic, and you had this great idea of a new type of washing machine, what will your friends and neighbors say? Chuck, what are you doing? You know, you know how to fix washing machines. What are you, crazy? You're going to invest your life savings trying to make, nobody's going to buy a new washing machine. So everyone basically finds a way of telling you not to do it. So you have to learn how not to listen respectfully. So, you know, if you want to maintain your friends, you have to figure out, how do I just do it anyway? And you may appear to be weird, and you may appear to be stubborn or obstinate, but it takes that character to get it done.
The majority of people listening to this podcast are in leadership or entrepreneurial positions. And I think the entrepreneurial mind can transcend just the title of I own a thing. It's more I own my life. And being a leader, I think, is that when you truly own that. And I really hope anybody listening takes that, what you just said, to heart, because I don't think that courage is given enough credit. It's just the courage to just be yourself and to stay true to the thing. Now, I think below that is also some humility. Are you capable of also knowing how to discern what voices to listen to? And half the time is also, you got to go test it.
Find the right people.
You need to find the right people, but you got to test it too. Like, you're going to go out into the world, and you had mentioned, was it Edison failed 1,000 times? Just reframe it like, no, I experimented and I learned. And if you can recalibrate the definition of failure into I learned this lesson, it makes the journey and the experience far more pleasant. And it gives you, I think what it really does is it preserves the hope, which I think that at its core, the lack of hope, the absence of hope, is what kills the dream. I don't believe anymore. You said it, like, you have to believe in the thing. And if it's your legacy, well, shit, what else? You have one life, as far as we know. Do I believe that in my lifetime, like, I'm going to want to make the most of it? That's a yes or no question. It's an on or off. It's your choice. I think that's the scarier part. When you say I'm going to take full authority over my life, ooh, when you're just used to offloading that to the media, to your parents, to your boss, to your school, to your
You're beat up. You're just beat. Think of a little bird born. It stays in its nest, okay? And the mother brings worms to that bird. That's the life of the bird, all right? Staying secure in the nest while the mother feeds it. And then one day, the mother picks the bird out of the nest, puts it on the edge of the branch, and basically says, "You're going to fly now," and kicks the bird off the branch. Okay. Now, the mother knows somehow that chick's going to fly. Okay. But when you jump off that branch, you don't know, but somehow the bird does fly. And it's the same thing in my book, Why Some People Can Fly. They know they can fly. They just have to figure out how far up do they want to fly? Okay. How far do they want to go? How far do they want to push the envelope? But we're all capable. We just have to, number one, do something that we believe is possible. If you don't believe it's possible, you're never going to pull it off. You're never going to pull it off. So we have to say, this is possible. Now, what do I have to do to get there? All right. And what am I putting at risk? And that's the other thing. Sometimes people feel, well, I'm going to put my relationship at risk. Many of those autistic type people did put their relationships at risk. Because they were what I say on the spectrum. Now, of course, at that time, there was no such thing as autism. It wasn't really defined until 1950, but nevertheless, their characteristics were, I'm going to hyper focus and I'm going to tune out everybody. Well, we have to learn, let's not tune out everybody. You don't want to tune out your wife because you have an idea. That won't be too good for your marriage. You know, but what you can do is bring your wife into your idea. Okay, instead of tuning out, bring people into your idea that want to support you, because you're going to need the support. And that's what I found in my life. Was a pivotal point. You know, I'm part of an organization of people who want to help. And I said, by golly, these are the people I want to be around. These are the people that could help me, because I don't know what I don't know. You know, I'm going into brand new territory, which makes sense, but I don't have the film skills. I don't have the technical skills. I may have the skills of inspiration and writing, but I have to rely on other people. So I have to learn now to take a step back instead of a step forward. I have to take a step back and become the architect of the idea. You know, an architect doesn't sit there and say, I'm going to build a building, so I'll learn how to lay bricks and run plumbing. No, he finds the bricklayer, the plumbers. He shows them the design. So I had to learn to step back and show my design and to get people passionate about it and let their talents bloom. That's a new field for me. So I'm learning, and it's just fascinating to be around people who are so talented. That's people that I've associated myself with, including you.
You're gonna get me blushing. You're gonna get me in my feels today, Morry. What I think, you use the word trust there, and I want to lean into that even a little more. When I bring the word trust into mind, and more often than not, you hear, I struggle to trust others. What I'm starting to observe, it's less about trusting others. It's, do you trust yourself to let go of control? And I'll only speak for myself. I know when I'm feeling insecure, lesser than, not worthy, feeling scared, that whole imposter thing, man, it's really actually more about a lack of trust of myself. Yeah. Like, if it doesn't go right, do I have the skills to say I was wrong? Do I have the humility? Do I have the do I have the capacity to make it right? It's always a doubt around, I need to check the box on myself. And do I trust myself enough to go down this path? It's hard. I think that's why I think doing these types of projects is really a lifetime endeavor. It's not a, well, we're going to do this I'm doing my legacy project in a month. Nah, it takes a lifetime of experience to say what you were just talking about. How do I be the architect and hand this stuff off and give it? Like, here, I need other people to, you legitimately need other people to have buy-in, to make it their own, to trust that they're going to preserve the heart of it, or to be okay with the fact that it might go a direction you didn't anticipate.
It might be better.
It might be better. I think that's the other side of it. It's like, what could go right? All we're thinking about is what could go wrong. It's like, you mean you got 5 creative people around you now who all think uniquely different? You think there might not be an even more phenomenal idea that could be
Sure.
built off of just, all you had was the one space that you were working. Like, you only multiplied your capacity for success. That being said, I think sometimes people get a little bit too crazy, as we talked about, bringing too many voices in the room, too many chefs in the kitchen. That's discernment. That's the lifetime experience type of piece that's being brought into this element. But I loved that you brought up trust, because that's a,
And when you don't trust yourself, seek out someone that will advise you. Seek out a coach. Seek out a person that understands you and understands the thinking processes and says, listen, it's perfectly normal to have self-doubt. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. But you can't let it overwhelm you. Okay. There's a time where you have to say, put that doubt aside. Let's look at the good things that you can do. Let's look at the possibility. Let's look at the hope. Let's not dwell on, oh my God, this is going bad. Maybe it's not going bad. If Edison dwelled on it's going bad, the light bulb would have never been made, So sometimes you need a coach or an advisor. And I know that you are in that business, and that's the reason why you thrive, because you understand how people think and how conditions affect people, and you get them back on track.
well, thank you for pitching me on my own program. That was very good.
And what was the name of your company again?
Naked Sunday. That's sign up here on this link and you get a cut of every single person that signs.
No problem.
The other side of it is I have yet to meet an entrepreneur that didn't first. You talked about that box earlier. More often than not, entrepreneurs have this like problem with authority. Don't tell me what to do. They had the courage to fight through that box, but the humility to at a certain point realize, cool, the path you're going is still just by yourself, man. Your capacity to serve is so limited. It's so limited by just doing it all by yourself.
You can't.
You can't.
You're not alone.
Not only that, you can't do it without clients. Somebody needs to pay for your services. Like, you legitimately, there is not a single way you can't do it without somebody else. It's just not possible.
And the whole concept of, for instance, Cosmo being the coach of a child, being the mentor of a child, children don't have that. Naturally, they look up to their parents and they look at their teachers. But, if a child is anxious about something, they may not want to bring it up to their parents. They might think the parents may make it worse. Let's say they're being bullied, and the mother says, or the father says, I'm going to go into school. I'm going to call their parents up. And you're like, no, please don't do it. You're going to make it worse. So what happens is they hold it inside. And holding it inside, they become anxious. And now that anxiety starts to build, could turn into depression. You don't know where that's going to go. They don't have anybody to talk to about it. Again, Cosmo, they can talk to and say, Cosmo, I got this problem. Of course, they don't know that at the time when they sign up to talk to Cosmo, maybe they want to have a one-to-one and have a real talking to Cosmo. They don't know that they're actually talking to a child psychologist or a crisis management person who is skilled in handling these situations, much more skilled than a parent. Okay, so they're guiding that child and showing them options, and I think we all need that. Adults need that. Thank God there are people like you, because there are times where we just feel that we're up against something that is just insurmountable. We just can't deal with it, and we feel lost. And sometimes you just need somebody to say, "You're not lost. Here. I'm going to show you. The door is over here. I'm going to turn the light on and then show you how to walk to the door."
Those aren't monsters, they're just shadows. That's all it is. That's so cool. And especially, I think what's important is like you're not replacing the role of the parent, you're not replacing the role of friends,
No,
you're not it's but it's more or less a simulation to say, oh, you know how to practice these skills, the what everybody looks as the soft skills of communication, feeling seen and heard. I think everybody thinks like, oh, okay, then AI and the world's going to come to an end because we're all just going to be, and I mean, who knows, maybe, I don't know.
could be.
But what I think it opens the door to, at least, I mean, what are we relying on right now? Kids are just talking trash to each other on social media anyway. They're just bullying each other in text messages. Well, what if now they're having a more meaningful kind of
What if
conversation?
they're working on a project together? What if they're working on something like, hey, let's go save the dolphins. Let's figure out a way.
Yes.
So you see, there are so many things that we can move and look, I don't know whether all of my ideas are going to work. I just know that we have to do something. If we look at politicians today, they've divided our country. And even situations where we have inflamed situations around the world, this is dangerous. We have weapons that in 2 seconds somebody can push a button and it's the end. We have to get away from this. And talking to adults, no matter what you say, half are going to say fine and the other half are going to fight you. So, like I said, I'm hoping that during the 30-year period of us mentoring children, that we have the 30 years and the world doesn't blow up. I don't think it will. But
Knock on wood, brother. Knock on wood.
I'm hoping.
Well, and just on the other side of it, so like my wife's a fifth grade teacher, at least right now, and she wants to take her career into admin, and she's really, I mean, talk about a gifted individual. I've never watched a highly biased. I'm also very critical about these types of things. I've never watched somebody be able to sift through this kid's having a moment right now, and it's not the real problem. What
Yeah,
this
it's
kid
not.
really, they don't feel loved. They don't feel seen and heard. And she could just like melt that. And I start thinking about how you get this thing in a school. It's a tool. It's accessible. It goes home. I mean, she's also in a city school, so it's like kids with, some of the kids just haven't had a meal. Like they're struggling. Huh. Well, what if we have a tool that's accessible? That's like you careful because you open the door here with
Well,
like
you bring up another thing. You
yeah
know, uh, a lot of our investors saying, "Oh my goodness, this is going to make a fortune." I'm not in it necessarily to make money. When you have a car and you look forward to things, it's just another thing after a while. Even a person that looks forward, I'm getting a Maserati. A year later, they're looking at a Lamborghini. It was the anticipation of getting it, but physical items only last so long. Or things that you do truly to help people last a lot longer. So I looked at it saying, why don't we funnel the money, a good portion of it, to children's charities all over the world? Why don't we funnel the money so children around the world can get educated properly? They have the books and they have the teachers and they have medication to keep them healthy and they have food. See, in America, we don't we just assume, oh, all kids, no problem. But even your wife knows that some of those kids are hungry.
yeah
Well, this is a money issue more than anything else. And if Cosmo makes a lot of money, why don't we funnel that into helping children? Why not? Because
yeah
that means a lot more to me than getting a Rolls Royce. I could care less about a Rolls Royce. It doesn't matter. Okay, what matters is, did I make a change, some kind of positive change? So maybe that money can be used purposely in areas, and this is where we're having a lot of celebrities involved because we are basically turning to them and saying, listen, if you have foundations for children, we'll make you a deal. We'll funnel our money into your foundations, providing you support the idea of Cosmo. You talk about it. That's all we care about. Because if you care about children, Cosmo Project certainly cares about children, and we'll give you the money to your foundation. So we're looking at many ways of keeping this moving. As you can see, this is going to grow very quickly. You know, once the movie's released, it's going to move quickly. And like I said, I'm hoping that I get a good 5 years of my running it before I hand off the baton. But even as I'm running it, I'll be working with the younger people behind me, making sure that they understand where we're going with this. And like I said, they may have much better ideas than me, and that's fine.
Well, careful, you open up a can of worms in my brain. But once I get an idea in my head, it starts
You
to...
know, I'll bring you in it, I'll bring your wife in it. The more people that I have that care, okay, the better it'll be.
Just fire me up while you're at it. One of my pipe dreams, and my wife just walked in downstairs. She knows this, and she's going to get on my case about it after I say it. But I've wanted to build a school, and I think sometimes I think a little too myopically about what a school has to be. I was like, it has to be, you know, the 4 square walls and all that. I'm like, no, I can go everywhere. And this kind of thing has some of those legs to it. Like, it's not again about the credits, about like, well, what part needs to be imbued with this type of concept? How can we enrich this piece? Because again, I mean, I started thinking like, well, I'm going to have kids. What kind of world do I want them to grow up in? That's all that shit, man. That's all that matters to me. And you've talked about the baton a few times here. I kind of had this metaphor that like a while ago. I was like, life is really just a relay race. It's a relay race of a marathon, and you're pacing your way through life. Some people try to sprint it a little too hard and crash and burn, but whatever. But that's, if we think of it that way, it's like, it's not even my baton to hold on to. That's it.
And you know what I'll get a kick out of? Of course, I won't be alive, but you know, imagine Walt Disney's great grandchildren saying, my great grandfather did this. Well, maybe that's how I'll be remembered. That I'm the one that started it. That might be the only accolade. Of course, I won't be alive to see that, but that will be kind of cool.
That's really cool. I mean, the energy itself will be alive.
I'm hoping, and I know my role is inspiration. It's just like your role as a coach. Okay, my role is to inspire people, to make them get it, to see what this is about, to bring out that passion where they go, I'm in. You see, your dog even likes it.
My dog's inspired. That could be the voice of Cosmo right there if you want it. He gets more attention everywhere I go. If I was single, I would just get him and wander through a park. It'd be insane. But
that's your first child.
It's my first child. I've wrote a whole blog series on lessons I've learned from my dog, and it hit. There was a lot of like, oh yeah, I get that.
You know what? If you're a writer, start writing that down. It's a great book. Lessons I learned from my dog.
I already got the blog post out there. It's a series of like 5 episodes.
I'll help you write it.
I love it. Well, I'm working on my book now too. Who knows? Maybe I'll be done by the time this airs. But Morry, you brought a lot of joy and happiness to my world this evening, and I'm very. There is a lot of inspiration in my heart and in my mind, and I'm probably going to lose a few hours of sleep gladly to thinking about this tonight. So appreciate that. Don't worry, I can sleep in a little bit longer tomorrow, so it's going to be okay. But if somebody's listening to this and they go, I dig this guy, I dig this project, I just want to be more around this in some way, shape, or form, what's the best way for somebody to connect with you?
Well, certainly they can go to Facebook. My business page at Facebook is M. David, bestselling writer. They can also go to LinkedIn under Morry David. All right. They can go to my email, morrydav@yahoo.com. I'm a little reluctant to giving out my phone number, my cell number, but if somebody contacts me through the email or whatever, I'd be happy to give it to them. I just, I get so many calls on my cell phone. I'm shocked that my phone must be off right now, because normally I wouldn't have an hour and a half to talk.
Are you one of those people? My best friend, his phone is perpetually on 1%. So, it's like half the time I'm like, oh, his phone died.
20%.
Oh, you got some juice in there,
Fine.
brother.
I got another 2 hours.
Oh God, I love it. I love it.
But it was great talking to you, and of course you have my phone number, and
Of course.
if your wife wants to talk about how she thinks that children should be helped, I'm glad to talk to her, because like I said, the more people that I have involved, intelligent people, the better Cosmo will be. So I want to surround myself around teachers, around crisis management people, around psychologists, psychiatrists. We have a young lady in England that said she will donate her time. She's a linguist, and she knows, I think, 22 languages. And she said she would actually teach children. We can set up Zoom with children all around the world, and she'll teach them the languages. So kids at 6 and 7 years old will learn the languages so they can speak to other kids around the world. We can demystify other children's lives. And you see, the reason this is important is, why do the children in Russia really know about the children in America? I don't think so.
No.
Do the children of China know about the children in America? Do the children in Brazil, the children in South Africa? No. All right. Well, we have to change that, because if we can get all these children together, think about this, they become friends. When they get older, why would they fight? They would be the new politicians. They wouldn't fight. They'd be friends that have learned to work with one another. We could prevent a war, because why would you fight? The whole purpose is working together. Silence.
Rarely do you find me speechless, my friend. So my wife's like, I need to keep this guy around more often because my husband's shutting up more.
Now I'm going to go downstairs, and my wife is going to tell me to take out the trash. So just to put everything in the proper
right back, and puts life back in order, right?
Back, yeah. So that's why I enjoy doing these shows, because it allows me to live in a different world.
I feel it, brother. On that note, like, any parting words of wisdom for our audience, for them to take home?
I just think that people should, come from passion. They should believe in themselves. And if you believe in yourself, things will happen. So, find the right people, find the coaches, find the mentors. Anything is possible if you believe in yourself. You just have to, day one, saying, I'm capable of doing this. I was put on this earth to do something special. Well, do it.
I'm not even going to try to close this on a better note than that. That was fire. That was absolute fire, brother. Everybody, Morry's stuff's going to be in the show notes. So if you want to get in touch, look no further. Thank you, my friend. I look forward to where this relationship and this friendship is going to go. I look forward to supporting this project and this cause you got going on. It's a beautiful legacy that you're working on there, and I'm deeply grateful. Hope everybody got as much value out of this conversation as I know I'm lost in the ether for the rest of the night. So again, thank you for that. Yeah. But thank you, everybody, for listening. And until next time, I remind you to love everybody.
Take care.